We are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. You know, we are in an election year on a lot of fronts, and there's going to be an election in May, okay? The deadline to run for office here in Davidson County for judge races, council races, sheriff, and all that there. You've had opposition in the past, but not this time, and I'm sure in some ways that's nice. You don't have to worry about competition. You just do your job, focus on your job. You don't have to get out necessarily in a campaign as much.
Yeah, Nick, so this is the 6th time I've run, and I thought about this. I mean, the truth of the matter is, once you're in the job, in my opinion, the office is on the ballot. What does that mean? I mean, I'm not going to be able to change the way I'm doing things after this many years, meaning the men and women who work there are the best at what they do in the country. I don't care. And you could even run it. That's how bad it is. I mean, they're so good, you could even run the place.
See?
I mean,
someday I might be a chief deputy.
Right. Well, with the staff over there, you could look good.
Okay.
That's how amazing. That's how amazing
I had no
they are.
doubt, but you hire very good people. So because of that, though, you have the power of an incumbency anyway. But you've had opposition before, right?
Yeah, so I had a guy who's run against me twice. I've met him one time in my life, but he signed up the last couple of times ago, and but I wrote something to our staff last week. It really is, to me, it's a credit to what they're doing. This work is incredibly difficult to do. It is underappreciated in the most, on the best of days. It's underappreciated and very difficult work. In the last 24 months, there's not a type of work in the country more impacted than them. I don't care what anybody says. I'll arm wrestle anybody. You can call in. That's just not true.
Jail or sheriff's office, or do you mean law enforcement in general?
The men and women working inside of a jail facility because of the COVID crisis, because of we had the most people positive any metro government agency. They're living inside. You mentioned Travis Ranking. They live with the inmate population, which you couldn't get someone on your street to want to do this. There's 44 inmates to one officer. These shifts are tough. The work is tough. You're not appreciated in the way. You're underpaid. We're trying to get that fixed. There's a lot to just say, who in the world would go do that? And the people who do it deserve credit for it, and that's on a normal day. When you take COVID and you're wearing full hazmat suits just to feed a meal, when an inmate has to use a telephone, when you have to take them, it's been, and just imagine when most people were saying, oh God, let's work from home.
That's not an option.
Right. And so you drive to work, go inside an environment where COVID is rampant. We had 800 inmates positive just a few weeks ago. We got people who won't go in a grocery store without everyone. You know, it's just it's amazing. And so, you know, credit to them that the election is just kind of to me, it's a performance evaluation of the office. And if it's an open seat, everyone can brag about what they would do if they got in it. If it's the incumbent, basically it's an evaluation of how well they're doing their job. And I've been very lucky. They do incredible work in the most awkward of times, and we're fighting very hard. You did a story a few weeks ago, and just recruiting into this line of work is so tough. And we've worked really hard. We hopefully in the next few weeks we're going to see the city step up to the plate as they should to raise the pay for correctional officers. The state did that. Credit to the state just a few months back. We've got to recognize that too. Everyone talks about first responders, and God bless you, I like people who do that. But we aren't first responders. The people who work for us are living day to day with Travis Ranking. With Travis Ranking and the risk of COVID. Travis Ranking when we're having to get him a haircut because the attorneys want him to look right in the courtroom. We can't let him be exposed to COVID. We can't be exposing him to COVID. We're trying to make sure that the trial runs smoothly and keep his life in order, protect him from himself. People don't think about that.
How much money are you asking for? Just lay it out. Just what they're making now, and you're going to be asking the mayor and the city council to budget for the next, I guess, is in July or whatever, the next budget. So how much more are you going to ask for that you think is fair with what is keeping with what the standard is in the industry?
We need to be in a 15% range. We need to move up about 15%. And what does that do? It keeps us below what a police officer makes. I've never argued that a police officer who's driving around town who has a lot more training and requirements to be a law enforcement sworn personnel, but it would put us right below them. Just to give you an example, today a police officer starts $5,000 more than our officer. That makes sense. I'm okay with that. 1 year later, that same police officer makes $16,000 more than we do. That's unacceptable. It's how you progress and how it's set up that we need to raise.
What do they make an hour for you? And I know you've got this new plan where you have part-timers, but a general deputy or correctional officer makes about what?
$20 an hour.
20?
It needs to be 30-ish. Okay. And so now, let me back up. So $20 an hour is what you make, but you also have a pension and health care and all that covered for you. So what we're doing with the program we start here in just a few weeks is we've got the part-timers coming. We're paying them $30 an hour with no benefits, because we've taken that benefit cost and rolled it into the hourly rate. So what we're doing is we're trying to get the full-time pay up, so that the person who has benefits and a pension will also stay with us and come to work there. But the part-timer was an alternate program. The reality of our struggle, this is interesting to think about, is we have a recruitment problem, not a retention problem. We have one of the lowest turnover rates in the country. The problem is recruiting people into this line of work when you can cut hair for $60,000 a year in Nashville, but you can't live for $60,000 a year in Nashville. I mean, so cutting hair is a great place, but I just have someone, it zaps 2 minutes, I'm walking out, that person makes $50,000 a year. That's what they tell me. My officers who come into work in all shifts and all hours and deal with all this, they don't make $50,000 a year. So if you had a choice to go cut hair with a clipper, or to go deal with what we deal with, how are we going to compete with that? How are we going to compete with Oracle and these other places? And we do not want the same clientele that they're hiring, but we need to compete with someone who is working at a downtown bar as a bouncer, or trying to work in security at the airport. Or we've got to have people willing to come to work here, and if we don't stay competitive, we won't do that.
And just as bleak a picture as you can paint, in worst case scenarios, why I'm asking, so that folks understand it. Because you understand it, the taxpayers have to recognize this should be a priority, as it should be, say, for instance, with school teachers as well, and some other realms we'll talk about. But it has to be a priority, and the lawmakers have to, and it's tax dollars, things have to be budgeted. If this is not addressed, and you simply can't get the staff to safely operate the jail, what happens? And just at its barest, I'm not saying you're saying that's going to happen, but if nothing is done, maybe 3, 4, 5 years from now, and it just keeps going down, and what happens?
Yeah, so I will not put officers in buildings that are unsafe, and if they don't have the staff they need to run it, it's unsafe. We will either let people go, I will go to the judges. If they won't release them, I'll release them. We're not going to put people in buildings if we don't have enough people to do their job safely. Here's the difference.
How close are you to that point?
It's a really good question. The only thing that has helped us is our population has also been going down for the last several years. That's just a benefit to us. COVID stretched that tremendously, because now we're spreading people out who are positive. So that stretched our staffing as well. Here's the difference people don't think about. Tonight, if a police officer, if there's a vacancy in the police department, or if you call in sick at the police department, what they do is they basically have other officers watching that zone tonight. Sometimes they can get people to stay over, but they don't necessarily have to do it. I've ridden with police officers many, many times. And so if this zone is empty tonight, we're all trying to pitch in to cover that area of Nashville. You don't do that. I can't leave an empty housing unit for 44 people to eat and sleep and run and walk. You got to pay somebody to be there. If they're not there, we can't survive. The inmates' livelihoods are at stake. Our staff, we got to feed, we got to give medication out, we have to get people. So,
but I mean, ultimately, when the people aren't showing up and you don't have that staff, that can mean you have to release inmates. It's just too dangerous. You have to decide who releases it. You have the power to do that?
Yes, there's multiple ways to do that. You would not want me to do that. I mean, there are furloughs. We'll release you till we get staffing. When would that ever happen? Who knows if we'd ever get you back? I have a friend of mine in Madison, Wisconsin, the sheriff. He had the National Guard come in and watch his inmates because the COVID ravaged through his facilities, and the staff weren't available. We're through COVID, and I don't mean permanently. We're not through our COVID problem isn't our issue. Our issue is we have to pay our staff what the city of Nashville deserves. We have always paid more than Department of Corrections. We no longer do that. We could cherry pick anybody we wanted from the Department of Corrections historically because we paid better, it was a better place to work, better opportunities. We no longer do that.
Department of Corrections now pays
$44,000, and we're paying $38,000.
$44,000, and
we're paying $38,000.
Davidson's $38,000. Take a quick call before we go to a break. Linda, good morning. Good morning, Linda.
Good morning. I'll try to keep this quick. This is kind of a follow-up strange situation from Jennifer Krause's report this morning on Ring doorbells and safely all the security systems out.
Yeah.
But this past Friday, I was in my living room, had my front door open, the storm door was locked. I got up to go get a bottle of water from the kitchen, and in that length of time, somebody rang my doorbell, which was a security doorbell. And I went back to the front door, and a very well-known national company door-to-door salesperson was standing on my sidewalk. I talked to him through the door, and basically sent him on his way because I'm on the no-knock list. I have a sign on my front door that says no soliciting, and so as soon as he left, I immediately went to check my security videos. And when I did that, when he rang my doorbell, he actually took his hand and stretched his arm up and checked the facing of my door to see, I guess, if I had a key up there.
Yeah.
And I immediately locked up, and I went and I found his car. He was up the street, and I got his license plate number, and I called Metro Police. I don't know if they did anything about it. I called the company that he was representing, and I just want to tell everybody, be on the lookout. Be very watchful, because if I hadn't gone back immediately, I would not have even been able to get his license plate number, which was an out-of-state vehicle.
Okay, hang tight on that. I'll give you a chance to respond now before we have to take that break. She makes a great point. I understand maybe why Metro didn't respond. There wasn't a crime actually occurring there, though he maybe trespassed violating the signs. But I know what she's saying. This guy was looking to see if there was a key up there. He'd wait till she left and come back and maybe rob the place or burglarize the place.
Yeah, I would be careful. I wouldn't trust anything you see. I mean, what they're wearing doesn't mean anything anymore. Yeah. And, you know, the whole ring stuff is fantastic nowadays.
Those cameras,
it's amazing.
really.
It's changing. So, and Linda, credit to you. People don't think about this. Most crimes are solved by people involving themselves, telling the police, telling folks what they saw and who they were. So document that. I think it's great to have a police report. That will help as well. I think it's very smart to call the company or a fake company if that's what you're doing, because they all need to know that.
Thank you for your call. I think that's great for all of our listeners. We'll take a break. Do we need to take a break yet? Yeah, we will. We'll take a break, and when we come back, more calls, more of a conversation with the sheriff right after this.
This is a Storm